Let's do
First
it.
question, important question. Do you groom down there?
Uh,
Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watch Your Pass. Today I'm talking to Matt McClung, the writer and director of Inhabitants, which is coming to digital on February 14th, 2025. I'm going to talk to him right now, and while you're watching, if you can like, subscribe to this channel, that would be fantastic. I'll spend a lot. Thank you. So, thanks so much for joining me today. I've got Matt McClung, the writer and director of Inhabitants, which is coming to digital on February 14th, 2025, just in time for Valentine's Day. I mean, there is a couple in here, and there are a couple of horrible things that happen to them, but it is a kind of like indie horror thriller with some romance aspects and some comedy that has a really great slow build-up, some really beautiful cinematography, and some wonderful atmospheric music. I am very excited to talk to you, so thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me, David. I'm very excited to be here.
Of course. So, first question. This is a movie that seems maybe to be inspired by personal things that happened to you. So, what did inspire this film, and why do you hate religion so much?
Well, first of all, I would say that I don't hate religion, but I am really interested in it as a both as a thematic component of the movie and also just as a practical element within the story. Given the sort of spiritual background of our characters, it intrigued me that it would come out in a relationship, and especially like a young relationship where you're really just getting to know the person and you're sort of evaluating how your beliefs are tested in certain situations. In the case of this movie, it's sort of a far out supernatural one, but it could be anything negative that would affect someone's life. Religion might play a bigger part, religion might play a smaller part. You change, and I like exploring all that through the guise of a relationship. I was raised religious myself and have had kind of on and off relationships with part of it over the years, but I remain interested in it, and I would never ever sort of ever try to, sort of come down one way or the other. I think part of it is just that it is interesting to me and remains interesting to me on an emotional and personal level and within the context of this movie.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I kind of liked the way that you brought up, people, their lives coming together and maybe aspects that you didn't know about or didn't realize were important are now kind of like put in the fold. I think also when you kind of like think about combining your lives, maybe some things that you left hidden or didn't really think were important to you come out and you're like, well, I didn't care for the first year, but now that I'm thinking long term, like maybe this is something that's important to me. And also just I was raised religious. I'm not very religious anymore, but things about that do kind of come into your personality, the way you think, the way you kind of act, which is human nature, but also something that is difficult when you're kind of merging two very different views and two different lifestyles. So
Yeah, I think that's a really sort of elegant way to put it, honestly, and was part of what interested me in the idea. And I'm glad you got from the movie. So yeah, thank you.
yeah, I mean, I think maybe I need some more crystals around my house to be fair, because you gotta kind of cover my bases, I guess. That's the kind of the
Totally, yeah,
story.
yeah. I know, and I wanted both things to get a fair shake within the context of the movie and this situation they find themselves in. So
For sure. And so this movie is, it's probably more of like a thriller horror movie. There's a lot of drama, there's a lot of suspense, but I did kind of appreciate some of there's a little bit of comedic moments in here. There's a little bit of romance. I liked the mix there. Was that always the way in the script? I especially loved when the two kind of like important women in Francis's life are clashing. I thought that was like a really fun, kind of funny interlude between some very serious start and kind of a more serious end. So was that always the way it was, or was that just kind of how when you were filming it, their interactions like this is actually kind of like fun to see them butt heads a little bit and kind of like passive aggressively, try to win over Francis.
yeah, I'm glad to hear that is coming through the movie. It was definitely always part of our intention, and I love a lot of horror comedies, but I've noticed they tend to a lot of the comedy can sometimes come from how the genre is being like riffed on or subverted. And I think what appealed to me and is still really interesting and appealing to me is that like in a situation like this, and you could apply this to anything in your family, like just because it's really serious, people's natural personalities don't just turn off. Their idiosyncrasies, their obsessions, their complaints with one another, in fact, usually get ratcheted up. And so I wanted all the comedy to come from behavioral humor about how people would clash in the situation, and for that to just be a part of the movie where the characters aren't completely streamlined to serve the plot as much, because I love horror movies that are like that. Like I think a big touchstone for the movie was Poltergeist, because in that movie it is this really fun kind of haunted house ride, but the parents are sort of these like ex-hippies, and the behavioral humor with them and the family they're in, all the characters are really developed, and it all kind of comes from them just being people. And so that has always been an interest with this script, and it was a pleasure to work on with these actors.
No, I love that because especially, comedy can be hit or miss, and I'm sure that situational comedy can be hit or miss, but a lot of times I'll see a movie where like I'm like this, I want this to be funnier, but the jokes just aren't hitting. They're not speaking to me. But this feels very kind of like authentic and kind of like lived in. So it's not like necessarily the characters trying to be funny. It's just like the situation will make you kind of chuckle a little bit as you see what might happen in maybe your life or someone that you know's life. So,
Yeah, that's great to hear. I'm glad.
and so much of this film relies on like the chemistry between Olivia and Francis, and kind of especially when they're starting out, seeing them interact. How did you find the two actors that portrayed them? Had you worked with either of them before, or was this just kind of like a very lucky break for you?
Definitely the latter. A very lucky break. We worked with a really, really brilliant casting director named Bess Pfeiffer, who um, lent her expertise and her experience with, just the whole casting process of an independent film of this scale. And I think gave us a lot of credibility. And her taste was really, really good at just bringing us people who could possibly play these parts. And it was just very old school. Like we saw saw videos, auditions, that kind of thing of both of them, and pursued them, and they wrote the script and they were in. So it was a really, really great experience from a creative standpoint for me, because it just felt like it was driven by the story, and we got to, and I would say that down the line with all the other actors, even Kevin Nealon and Anna Author and Todd Robert Anderson, it was just about going after the person who felt right for that part and was excited about this movie.
That's awesome. Was Josh's script? Did Josh's script have the pivotal injury scene in there, or was that kind of like kept secret until a little bit later? Because that must have been a painful scene to watch or to
No,
film.
man. It was in there. So, he Josh knew what he was signing up for. He was a good sport. Yeah, it was great. It was a good experience filming it, and he deemed it pube gate on the set,
That's
which
perfect. That's
got a lot of
perfect.
laughs. So
I
yeah.
uh I was very nervous when that scene was happening because I was like, I'm pretty sure I know what's gonna happen. I don't want this to happen, and I wasn't sure how much would be portrayed because the movie hadn't had a lot of like gore at that point. It hadn't had a lot of like practical, physical effects at that point. So I wasn't sure. And I've seen all extremes of that in horror, so I wasn't sure where you would go. I was pleasantly surprised at the amount of dampening that happened during that scene that didn't make me experience it completely.
That's good. Good. We're doing our jobs.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I also, you mentioned Kevin Nealon. I loved having him in there. It was kind of like a fun character for him to play. How did you get him involved? Had you worked with him before? Or again, was that just like a very lucky break from your casting director?
It was yeah, just a good instinct by our casting director, and it was the kind of thing where it was only like a day or two of shooting with Kevin, so it fit well in his schedule. He liked the part, he liked the script, and he came down and like, kind of just was a part of our movie, and he was wonderful to work with. I mean, we were filming in the shop, and he was just really courteous and professional and willing to try a bunch of stuff. And he was able to, come down to the level of an independent film, and didn't make anybody feel, like that was the case. And he just felt like part of the team. So I really enjoyed working with him, and would definitely jump at the opportunity again if it was the
That's
right
awesome.
part.
That's awesome. I love hearing that when like you got, for lack of a better word, like the marquee name or the one of the big names that's trying to like put everything together, and they come in and they just like are fun to work with, and it's probably a treat for everyone involved, and they must have fun kind of like reliving that, or maybe like helping another generation of filmmakers kind of make it up. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, it was great for the crew. I think you're right. It was kind of near the end of our schedule, and it was a really fun day to sort of wrap out the film on.
That's awesome. And so The crystal stuff was interesting. Do you like, are you into crystals, or did you get like, did you just read up online? Like, where did you find like the various crystals and like what their, energy or effect are? Like, how did you kind of like arrive at that?
Yeah, good question. I am sort of interested, I would say vaguely interested in it as I am interested in like other religions. I'm not like I would definitely never call myself like a devoted practitioner, but in the course of researching this movie and sort of seeing where Olivia's character fell on like the kind of spectrum of things, it was definitely something I just, I wanted to immerse myself in understanding. And I also just talked to some people who were more in that world and had a better kind of like had opinions on what would do what and that kind of thing. But so it was a bit of research, a bit of like personal experience, but I definitely would not call myself I'm pretty neutral, I think. Yeah, to both of the extremes in it. I'm interested and I'm curious, but I wouldn't identify as a practitioner of one or the other at this point in my life.
I was trying to think what crystal you would analogize. I don't know anything about it. Maybe a quartz. I'm not sure what your crystal would
Yeah,
be.
no, I'd have to see. I'd have to see, but
But hey, I liked Olivia's explanation in the movie where she's like, it just kind of works for me, which is great. If something works, like keep doing it, right? Like might as well try.
yeah. I'm glad. Yeah, that right. That's part of what, it is mysterious what works and what doesn't for people. And I hope the movie comes across as having a kind of an even view of that, of like, it helps me. It's like, what can you really say to that? As long as it doesn't hurt other people.
Yeah,
But
yeah, exactly. I also mentioned a little bit about the practical effects. There weren't a ton of effects in this, which is I think always smart for an indie film. You didn't try to like do too much, but I did like that it seemed like it was more on the practical side. Were my observations correct, or was it kind of a nice mix of practical and special effects?
Um, I'm glad it's reading practical. That's good. I think it was a mix. I think it was firmly a mix. There's definitely some stuff that was digital visual effects, but we did sort of what I would call like kind of an extensive set of tests because of the budget of the movie and just the schedule, typical, indie tight timeline. We did a lot of test shooting before to try to work those out and make them feel as realistic as possible. But yeah, it was part of the approach from the beginning that just scaling the context of this movie is like that stuff hopefully would feel significant, because we just didn't, it's not the kind of movie where that happens in the first like 5 minutes and you're kind of numb to it. I wanted you to just be as focused on what they were going through emotionally and personally as, and keep that stuff on the same level. But yeah, I think it was probably like a 50-50 approach. So.
That's good to hear. And yeah, like there's a fire scene later on, which I'm pretty sure was special effects. I don't think you burned anything down, but like it was a smart use where it didn't. Sometimes you can have a fire scene and you're like, that looks really, really bad. But this it kind of looked natural. I think there were nice camera work to make it so that the fire might be a little bit off screen, or when it was there, it didn't like look completely added on. So I think that was a good use to focus on the other parts of the movie first, and then have little smatterings here and there.
Great. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I mean, it's the kind of thing too where um yeah, it's not the kind of film where we are creating a giant inferno. In some ways it might um throw the emotional register of where we are with our characters off balance. And so yeah, there was like I think you're right. There was some sort of old school tricks to, to play within our means smartly.
Very smart. So I know we have limited time. I'm going to switch to a lightning round. They're just lightweight questions about the film. Want to see how your personal experiences map to things in the movie. Feel free to skip any of them. I won't be offended, but I try to keep them very answerable.
Okay, let's do
First question, important question. Do you groom down there?
it. Skip, man. My mom might listen to this. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, you're probably
I'm
gonna skip.
sorry.
That's fine. That's
Yeah,
fine. You are
yeah,
free to skip any of them.
thank
Next
you.
question. You're probably gonna skip this too. Have you ever injured your penis?
Uh, well, I don't know. There's a movie called There's Something About Mary. I don't know if you recall. There's a zipper sequence.
Yeah,
Let-
no, that scarred me as a kid. So
Yeah, let's just say it was many years ago, but to this day I shiver. So yeah,
yeah, that scarred me as a kid. Sounds like it scarred you in another way when you were younger. So
it's all
yeah,
okay now. But I appreciate your.
I'm glad that everything seems to have worked out. This movie also has a part where one of the characters thinks that they're having like a weird reaction to a medication. Have you ever had like a strange reaction, like a medication or drug, or maybe Do you sleepwalk at night? Do you have like night terrors, things like that?
It's interesting. I've not had a strange reaction to anything, but I have had some sort of, and part of what sort of inspired some of that was like mild, what I would call anxiety dream, kind of in between waking and sleep, kind of mini split second things where I think I see somebody in the room, and it was terrifying. It's upsetting for my partner, and like she's always disturbed by it, and it is the kind of thing that sort of has stopped. But I think some of it inspired aspects of this film, and as a filmmaker, your mind wanders. As somebody who loves horror movies, you're like, what if that got a little more specific? What if that was a little more sustained? So I pulled whatever I kind of could from my own mild existence into the story.
I hope you also pulled some amethyst into that room because that doesn't sound like a good energy in there.
Yeah, I thought about it, but
Next question. This movie has, Olivia's character moving for Francis's job. Have you ever moved, for someone, for their career, for their personal reasons, anything like that?
hmm. Um, Not for another person, but it's something I'm really interested in as a filmmaker because it does happen, and I feel like it creates an interesting dynamic in a relationship. But the way my life has worked out, I moved for college and have been kind of stationary ever since. But yeah, we'll see though. You never know.
A charmed life, except for one zipper incident, a charmed life. Uh, this movie also deals with religious iconography and non-religious iconography. Do you have any sort of religious iconography in your house?
Oh, not, unless like a like nice Children of Men poster counts. Yeah, I would say no. So, yeah.
That is a fantastic movie. I'll
Yeah.
that's a great religion to follow, and also maybe telling of our future times. Who knows?
It's
Um,
sadly become more and more relevant. So,
exactly, exactly. And the last like kind of like lightning fire questions. Here is a list of sins from Francis's journal. Let's see which of those you have either done recently or would like to confess about. First
hmm,
question, first one, gossip.
okay.
Yes,
Oh,
yes or no, yes or
oh, recently? Sure. Yeah, why not? I'm alive. Yeah.
impure thoughts.
No, I'm pretty focused on my life and yeah,
That that's
positive.
that's a that's a smart answer. Cheating on a test.
No, because I'm like,
Excellent.
yeah.
Lying, which would
Uh,
be ironic if that was the one. You're like,
yeah.
I haven't done any of this stuff, but I did lie.
Throughout this interview. No, just kidding. No, I mean, not insignificant. No, I mean, really, no. Yeah,
Yeah. It's easier to tell the truth. Then your story stays straight when you have to like bring it up later. So,
yeah.
wishing other people suffering.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. And the last one, it was there multiple times, so you know it's coming. Masturbating. And you could skip. You
No.
could skip.
Yeah, let's skip.
All right.
Because never. So
Of
thank you.
course. Of course. So the film is coming to digital on February 14th, 2025, just in time for Valentine's Day. You're out promoting the film, getting the word out. But after people see Inhabitants, do you have any other projects on the horizon they can look for? Do you have anything else brewing in your mind or in your working on?
Yeah, I mean, nothing coming out like, that I could point to in the immediate couple months, but I've read a few other movies and we'll see. Right now I'm sort of focused on the release of Inhabitants and just making sure it gets to the people who like it and who are into this kind of haunted house sort of atmospheric horror movie. But after that, who knows? But yeah, my goal is to hopefully have something going within the next year or so.
All right, perfect. Well, you can wait with bated breath, gather your crystals, get some good energy while you wait for Matt's next project. But first, check out Inhabitants coming to digital on February 14th, 2025. This is the writer director, Matt McClung. Thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Take
Awesome.
care.
Awesome. Thank you so much. A lot of fun. That was Matt McClung, the writer and director of Inhabitants, which is coming to digital on February 14th, 2025, just in time for Valentine's Day, a horror thriller for Valentine's Day. It is an indie horror thriller with a nice build up, some really great atmospheric music, and some twists and turns along the way. If you like this interview, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.